So you constantly feel like you're going to be exposed and people are going to see that you're anxious. And when they do, it's going to be embarrassing, it's going to be awkward, and you're going to feel a ton of guilt and shame after the fact. So today I want to talk about this offset of social anxiety, this strong imposter syndrome, or this extreme fear of being exposed for being anxious, because trying to manage your life around this fear is going to be extremely exhausting and it's going to be extremely isolating. So today I want to talk about how to overcome this fear, and by the end of the video I want to give you some tips on how to overcome this, break free, and get back in action. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Ruben and I used to suffer from social anxiety. I was able to fully overcome it a few years back, and now I help other men fully overcome it and break free for good as well. And so I want to start by helping you understand how this constant feeling of being exposed, or this paranoia about people seeing you as being anxious, I want to help you understand how it developed and how it came to be in your life. And the key to understanding this is realizing that every human has a fight or flight, a defense mechanism, a system that can get triggered off at any time if there's an actual threat in the environment. And so it'll put you into a heightened physiological state in order for you to stay alive, in order for you to navigate away from that danger or that threat. And it does that. It increases your heart rate, it'll dilate your pupils so you can see better, and it'll increase your breathing. And so you can start to get a better sense of how this hypervigilant state can actually keep you safe if indeed there is an actual threat, or if there is an actual danger in the external environment. However, when you have social anxiety, this alarm or this fight or flight system will actually be triggered off at the fear of being evaluated negatively or being judged by other people. And so this alarm will get overactive. And when it becomes a pattern and it's constantly hijacking your presence, it's gonna ruin your ability to connect with people that are right in front of your face, because your body's essentially sensing this threat or this danger. And so when the symptoms go off, you will realize, if you have social anxiety, you will have experienced this. Your symptoms go off, your voice might start to shake, you might blush, your hands might tremble, and you get these physical symptoms. And what that does is it makes the people that you're interacting with uncomfortable. Right? So your symptoms flared up, maybe it was a social interaction or a work interaction, and you see the people get extremely uncomfortable. You see them almost get embarrassed for you. And what that results in is something I call fight or flight shame. You develop this paranoia, this constant feeling like you're not normal, like you're not other people. You're constantly making people uncomfortable, and you start to develop this shame, like there's something wrong with you because this fight or flight keeps going off. And I personally had a really long battle with this, because I would be at work meetings, even in groups, but when it was time for me to speak or talk in front of the group, my voice would shake, my mind would go blank, I would completely space out and dissociate, and I would have to look at other people who would be extremely embarrassed. And I remember the reactions to this day. People would constantly break eye contact with me and just look at the ground in embarrassment for me. And because it was so embarrassing for me, it became such a dreadful experience that I tried anything and everything to just start avoiding these work meetings. I would pretend I'm working on something else, or I would avoid social interactions, because I became just so paranoid that people were gonna see my fight or flight response and just see that I'm extremely anxious, and just see that I'm not basically normal. That, that was the feeling that I took on, that shame that I took on, that fight or flight shame that I'm talking about. And so I wrote an ebook, and it goes further into my story, and it's gonna be good for you to download. I'm gonna link it below the video, because it's gonna show you exactly what's underneath that fight or flight, that defense mechanism. It's gonna show you exactly what's underneath it that keeps triggering it off. And it's gonna give you a very clear roadmap of your mind and help you understand why that keeps being triggered off, so you don't have to keep wondering why this keeps happening to you. Why do you keep getting anxious? Why do you keep going into this fight or flight and making the people around you uncomfortable? You'll have that very clear roadmap, and it's going to take a lot of pressure off for you. And don't do what I did. Don't spend years and years and years trying to trying to get more confident and trying to seek out all these surface level techniques that don't get to the root of the issue, download the ebook. It's free and it'll give you the clarity that you need moving forward. It's going to save you years and years of heartache. All right. Now, how do you start to overcome this fight or flight shame? And the key here is become very, very familiar with how you experience shame. This is not an intellectual process. All right. So, shame, what is shame? Intellectually, it's the feeling of being defective, inadequate. Not that you're doing something bad, but you are bad. You are a bad person. That is shame. Intellectually, we know these things, but notice how I said experience shame. Experientially, how does shame feel in your body somatically? It is extremely uncomfortable. It is feeling like your stomach's burning, your face is burning in shame. It is an extremely, extremely uncomfortable and unnatural emotion, toxic shame, to have in your body. And so when you experience these things, start to catch on to the fact that you will be reaching for fixes. And so, for example, what I would do is I would jump on Google and I would try to figure out what was wrong with me. I would Google my symptoms, try to figure out how to fix myself. Then I go on YouTube and I look up how to be more confident and charismatic, how to fix this fight or flight shame that I was feeling, how to fix myself to the point so I never would experience that fight or flight ever again. And you can see from that behavior, if I'm trying to fix myself, the inherent message with that is there's something wrong with me. And so you can see how these behaviors, what they do is when you're reaching for these fixes to try and fix yourself, is it reinforces the fact that you feel inadequate and that there's something wrong with you. So it's important to start catching on to these behaviors, because if you're constantly Googling, constantly trying to figure out what's wrong with you, there is an experience in the body that you're ignoring. The experience of shame in the body is driving those behaviors, and it's important for you to start experiencing that, because when you stop the behavior and you sit with your experience, this emotion, it starts to get processed out. So it's important, because if you don't start to process it out, it becomes a locked in holding pattern, which gets triggered off in these social interactions. Because any slight quiver in the voice, any slight blushing, any slight mistake that you perceive that you're making, what shame does is it makes you spiral into a full-on self-conscious kind of panic inside. So you'll notice that when you become more attuned to yourself, you'll notice that everybody that you interact with, their voice quivers sometimes. They might blush a little bit. They might get a bit nervous. But when you have social anxiety and you're dealing with this toxic shame, any slight symptom, shaking voice, blushing, any slight vulnerability that you show in these social interactions, the shame will cause you to spiral into what's wrong with me kind of thinking, self-conscious thinking. Why am I always like this? I feel doomed. I feel like I'm not normal. So do you see how shame is the kind of, it's kind of the fuel to the fire that causes you to be extra hard on yourself for showing any physical symptoms at all. And so what that does is it separates you from everybody else, and it starts to feel like you're a bit isolated and you're not normal. Another component of releasing this shame is being accepted by a group of people who validate your experience. Because think about it, when you are telling your story and what you're experiencing, if nobody gets you and nobody's saying they understand what you're experiencing and they've experienced it as well, think of how much more isolating that is. And think of how that even locks in more of that thinking that there's something wrong with you. So what you can do is join my private Facebook group. And it's a group of men who experience this social anxiety. They experience these symptoms, this fear of being exposed, and they're gonna validate what you're experiencing. They're gonna say, hey, you're experiencing that? Me too. And what that does is it lifts so much of that burden you carry, so much of that toxic shame that you carry, because now you have people to share your experience with, and you have a group to support you and hold space for you as you recover from the social anxiety. So I'm gonna put a link to the group below the video. Join us, connect with us, share with us, and release some of that toxic shame that you've been carrying. I'm in there as well, and I'm posting exclusive content in there that I'm not placing anywhere else. So join us on the inside because you can ask me questions and I can guide you much, much closer when you're on the inside, all right? So until next time, I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Peace.